where we highlight the lives of prolific young entrepreneurs and professionals making strides in their respective fields. Today, we're speaking about the issue of risk management and its importance for SMEs. And our guest is a risk management expert, Miss Nature-elle Mogotsi. Miss Nature, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Big Budget. It's such a great honor to be here.
Thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. The first thing that I'll ask you is, tell us a bit about your backstory. Who is Nature-elle Mogotsi, and what is it that got you to where you are right now?
All right. It's a story that really warms my heart every time I have to share it. Mowana, all the way from Machudi, but I got to grow up in Gaborone. I did all my schooling here basically, and my varsity, I was still in GABS, and I did my postgraduate in South Africa through the University of Pretoria. Now, forensic accountant by qualification. I recently completed my postgraduate diploma in investigative and forensic accounting. And
sounds deep.
It is. It's quite fascinating, you know, and it's something I really wanted to explore because, especially as a young woman, there are not so many people who find it as fascinating. So I was like, you know what, I want to go through this area and see what it has to bring, you know. And subsequent to that, I also completed my Master of Philosophy in Fraud Risk Management.
Congratulations, congratulations.
Thank you.
So you're a master at this.
Well, I tried. You know, it's about the dedication and effort that I really put in. You know, there's a lot of academic work that went in, you know, and I believe in learning. It's actually one of my strengths. I'm a learner. So I've really made a concerted effort to ensure that I upskill myself at every given point in time, and leading to what now I call myself a pracademic.
Pracademic?
Yes. It's basically a term used to describe somebody who borderlines, you know, practice and theory at the same time.
I'm trying to Google that.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
That's great. That's great. Mm-hmm. So that's quite an inspiring story over there. And I take it you're a person who's very big on personal development.
Definitely.
And I think you touched on the issue of women being in the space that you're in. Would you say the representation is not that much?
Yeah, it's really not much. I mean, I studied in South Africa. So, I mean, forensic accounting is generally a scarce skill. You know, like certified fraud examiners, forensic accountants. It's even been added to the scarce skill list, the national scarce skill list of South Africa. So it's really something, a skill set that is lacking across the band, not just in Botswana, not just in women, just across the whole industry at large, and continental, even international, you know. So you can imagine at the level of scarcity, what more of the women population in that field. You know, so that's what really inspired me to keep pressing on, you know, to pursue this course of risk management, to just try to learn more about it, you know, especially from a fraud risk management perspective.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I'm sure for young people listening out there, if you'd like something or a field that can differentiate you, get into forensic accounting and fraud and risk and aspects like that.
Yes.
That's great. Let me remind our viewers at home that we are actually live today. So if you would like to call in, let's see your face, let's hear your questions. We've got Nature-elle Mogotsi here, a risk expert who's going to be sharing a lot more about risk management and it's important for SMMEs. So do call in by clicking the description below or comment, and then we'll have your questions answered. Thank you very much for that backstory there, Nature. But now, tell us about your work in the risk management space and your content, Moriski by Nature. Moriski by Nature. Quite catchy, something like Big Budget, you know what I'm saying?
Wow.
But anyway, on a more serious note, tell us about your work in risk management and your content. What made you passionate about this?
So I'm currently a risk management practitioner. I'm a risk manager in the financial services sector. And in addition to that, I do a lot of activities around risk management, because I'm very passionate about this risk management topic, and it's something that I've dedicated myself to ensure that I cascade it, across the whole community, as many people as I can reach. And I'm proud to say, Big Budget, that I've actually even, managed to cross over to regional platforms.
Wow.
Just spreading the awareness on risk.
Wow.
Where I've been a subject matter expert, like at the International Fraud Awareness Day in
Wow.
South Africa. Yes, I was one of
Congratulations.
the
That's
experts.
great.
Yes, it was great. It was such a great experience. So it goes without saying that choosing this area or this path that most people are not really inclined towards has really taken me far.
Yes.
It's really opening a whole lot of doors. And you mentioned more risky by nature.
Of course.
So
of course.
I've been, because of the level of awareness that I'm trying to create around risk management, to ensure that particularly SMMEs understand this concept of risk management, as well as how it can help them in their businesses. Largely we know risk management as something from for big corporates, for banks, financial institutions, or any other reputable organization. And we never really think it's something that should delve down to the SMMEs, and they're the most affected by risks, and the lack of management thereof can result in very adverse effects.
Certainly,
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get a lot more into that because you've sort of gotten into my next question, which was going to be, in simple terms, maybe let's start with an explanation of what you would term to be risk management before we talk about its importance for SMEs.
Yeah, so I'll start with defining a risk. At an SME level, I'll just try to make it as simple as possible. It's anything that can go wrong in your business. Pretty much anything.
Simple and straightforward.
Exactly.
That's a risk. Anything that could go wrong.
The lights could go off, the electricity could go off,
Oh, yes,
and then the
certainly.
studio has to pause for a bit. That's a risk. Anything that can really go wrong. So now risk management is all about managing that effect of something going wrong. We're now saying, these lights could go off, but risk management then says have controls in place, have a structured approach around it,
Measures,
have a
precautions.
generator, have backup. It's always about the plan B. It's talking more about the plan B, especially for SMMEs in this regard, to say have a plan B in place.
Of course.
To every key process that you have a plan B. Should this not work, have a plan B.
Yes.
I think it's something that is really coming out a lot. I mean, when you look at entrepreneurs within the fuel industry or the petrol logistics,
Okay.
we oftentimes or recently had a shortage of fuel supply, and largely they get the products from South Africa. And there's a point in time where South Africa was unable to provide the fuel supplies. And at that point in time, it speaks to now, diversification of portfolios, ensuring that you manage concentration risks by, the likes of having other suppliers. Like now they have Namibia and probably many others that are yet to come.
So
So
you could
that's
say it
risk
was
management.
A
really.
learning experience also.
Exactly.
For us, the petrol thing.
It was, that just shows as an example of many risk management techniques that can be employed to manage our businesses. And yeah, I think for SMME specifically, risk management comes in very handy when we're talking of risks such as concentration risk.
Okay.
Most of, for example, our entrepreneurs, they tend to concentrate on one specific client.
Yes.
And you can imagine if you have one client occupying over 60% of your revenue, what happens if that client is unable to, get your produce or your services? It means you're basically doomed. So with risk management principles and trying to address concentration risks, you ensure that you have alternative clients, at least at the very least have more clients who can just keep the ground running, at least to cover the overheads, such that if a big client decides to pull out, you don't have to close shop. You can continue. So it's about continuously identifying what are my risks and how do I put in controls. Controls are the things you use to mitigate the risk or to reduce it, just that the effect is not as adverse as it could have otherwise been. So that's pretty much risk management. It's like saying there's a risk here, something can go wrong,
Of course.
and then the management thereof to say, how do I ensure that it doesn't happen at all? That's a risk elimination. Or if I can't do that, how do I ensure that the impact rather, is not worse off than if you could do nothing at all?
Because there may be some that are unavoidable. Wow.
Exactly,
Wow.
there's some that you can't avoid, you know, but at least with risk management, you are able to reduce the impact. You know, if you're supposed to lose 200,000 due to a risk materializing, with risk management, at least you can lose up to maybe 20% of that instead of losing everything.
So you sort of have a cushion if you have risk mitigation measures in place. Exactly. So something that I picked up there, which I felt was very important, was this issue of a plan B. And then you did say also diversification of portfolios. If I only have one client as an SME and this client contributes 60% of my revenue, what happens if something goes wrong? So I think we should all, as young business people, see how we can diversify our income streams for our different businesses, and also increase the sources basically of income that we have, so that it can cushion us in the event that one sector, one segment that we depend on goes wrong. And then you did also mention that there are unavoidable risks, and we should be sure that, okay, this risk that is unavoidable, should it occur, what measures do I have in place to ensure that the impact of that is reduced?
Exactly.
Oh, lovely, lovely. So that would be risk management. Risk in itself, you said it's anything that could go wrong.
Yes.
Like the lights going off.
Exactly.
Right? So we shouldn't think too heavily.
Not too heavily. You know, in more complex terms, we tend to say, you know, to the extent it can affect the business objectives or the strategy, you know, but basically it's anything that can go wrong. You know, it's like in your sales strategy, you wanted to make this much amount, but a risk can materialize, resulting in you making way less than that, you know.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me remind you once again that we are live. Please make sure that you send us your comments, or if you would like to call in, just click on the video description. We have Nature-elle Mogotsi, Muriski by nature, who is a risk expert, and she's sharing on the importance of risk management for us SMMEs. Now, I was going to ask, what do you think, Nature, are the most central or crucial risk considerations for me and my business? What are those central things that I should always say, okay, at least from a risk perspective, I'm thinking of this and that?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I want to commend Botswana at large to say there are elements of risk management that are very clear and embedded into their businesses. You know, actually, you know, most of our entrepreneurs give a little more risky, you know. You know, they take the risks.
Yes.
You know, they manage the risks on a daily basis, you know, which is something that is, you know, business is all about taking risk.
Certainly.
So the main challenge that can come off is where, as business owners, we're unable to take calculated risks, you know, whereby your risk appetite is too high and you don't have sufficient cushions or controls or things to mitigate should things go wrong. You know, it's going back to that same example where, you know what, you go all out in one supplier and, one client, or you go all out taking from one supplier. If either of these fail, it means you're doomed, you know. So for me, the main thing is to say, we are aware generally that we need to manage risks. The only challenge is now the implementation of the risk management strategies, or to ensure that there's an approach which is structured. It's like we know how to manage risks, but it's too random. You know, it's like we're just trying this and that, you know, ensuring that the bills are paid, employees are paid on time, but the basics. Yeah. However, you'd find that, I'll just give an example. You know, you can think as a business owner, you have everything under control until it comes a time to submit a tender, you know. And you'll be compiling your tender, you know, things are going well, only to realize that, guess what? The tax clearance certificate has expired.
Wow.
Why? Because you didn't identify all your risks. That's a compliance risk. Are all my documents there? You know, am I even testing the controls to ensure that if I've outsourced this to a consultant or the secretary, you know, they are able to ensure that at least a month before the expiry, they're able to deliver the new documents. So even if you're outsourcing or transferring your risk to a third party, it doesn't mean you stop managing the risk. You're not divorcing yourself from the risk.
Yes.
It just means that you're allowing a subject matter to run with that component of the business, but the ownership of the risk still lies in you.
Yes.
So you can imagine how important risk management is. So the challenge that we're having is that while we do know what to do, we fail as SMMEs to implement the risk management objectives or the program holistically.
Okay.
You know, embedding the risk tools, and like at the very least, it doesn't have to be so complicated. I know
Yes.
for corporates, there's a lot that we do, the risk assessments, quantification of risk and all that. But with SMMEs, a simple risk register is one of the tools that you can just use to, you know, to monitor your risks, you know, to at least have your top 10 risks identified and have ways in which you're going to manage these risks.
Okay.
And then time and again, just check in, you know, are these controls effective?
Yes.
Are they really working as they should? So
Wow.
that's basically risk management, especially at an SMME level.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like how you said, we should learn to take a more structured approach to it.
yeah.
And the very way that I can start doing this structured approach is having a risk register. So maybe let's get into the columns and a few more examples once again. For me and my business, I want to have a structured risk management approach. I start with my risk register.
Yeah.
What am I doing? What lines am I drawing? What columns? What rows?
Okay, I think we'll do one just for you right
Okay.
now.
Awesome.
So this
Perfect.
is the big budget show, right?
All right.
We're just going to design a high-level risk register.
Okay.
So you'll tell me, what are your key risks right now?
Yeah.
I think most of them are around technology.
Absolutely.
You know, you need access. You know, internet connectivity has to be spot on. You need your lighting to be spot on. Everything studio. You know, you need everything to really flow.
Absolutely.
You know, you need to ensure that content goes out on time. You know, because if it doesn't, it's gonna be
A lot of people will be disappointed.
exactly. You know, you need to ensure that you're always present.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
so even as a control, how do we ensure that Big Budget is present today for the show? How do we make
Exactly.
sure that the studio is ready?
Absolutely.
You know, how do we make sure that the power supplies have backup? You know,
Wow.
connectivity.
I'm definitely sure the team behind the Big Budget Business is actually taking notes now
Yeah.
for that risk register.
So that's you identifying the risks. And then in terms of you identifying them, that's now the risk identification could be your column 1. And then column 2 is your risk rating. You now rate them in terms of the impact and likelihood. Like how
Impact
often can this happen?
and
That's the likelihood, yeah.
Okay.
And then the impact is more like, should this risk materialize?
Yes.
What's the quantifiable loss amount
Okay.
that you are likely to have?
Right.
We're going to go back to the same example, your technological risk. You know, if there's no connectivity, your wireless service provider is unable to provide, maybe they have one of their towers affected by, you know, a storm or whatever could go wrong there. And then for any reason, you don't have internet, you know.
Yes.
How do you rate that risk? Is it a high risk? Is it a very high risk? Or it's a low risk?
Okay.
And for you, you'd find that it's a very high risk. Like
absolutely.
you need connectivity. So that's you now quantifying, so that when you manage your resources, when you embed controls, you can say, to manage this risk of inadequate access to Wi-Fi or connectivity, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go for the reputable suppliers only.
Okay.
I'm gonna have maybe backup to ensure that if the Wi-Fi connections don't go through, there's maybe a mobile connection or mobile data connectivity that can kick in immediately.
Of course,
You know,
alternatives.
that's a control now.
All right.
And then in terms of how you do it, then you're gonna prioritize. You're gonna say, okay, this is my high risk. It's higher than maybe the risk of lighting going off, because you know, we can pull up the torches quickly and you know the studio gets back to the original state. You can now quantify and say, you know what, the risks around connectivity are way higher than the risks around the lighting going off, you know. And then when you channel your resources to say, where do you focus on, you'd find that you are now skewed towards ensuring that, like, whatever happens, connectivity is always guaranteed.
Absolutely.
So now that's you creating your register to say there's identification of risk.
Yes.
What is the risk? You write it down. Quantify it. Is it a high, medium, or low risk?
Impact
Write it
likelihood.
down. And then you go to the control section, the third column, to say, what am I doing to reduce this risk? Because I know it's going to happen, or it can happen, or how do I just make sure that it shouldn't happen? Or if it does happen, it shouldn't be that bad, situations where the Wi-Fi goes off and the live connectivity kind of like pauses, but just for a minute, and then it's back on,
yes.
because you had a backup plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. There we have it. Our risk expert, Muriski by nature, Nature-elle Mogotsi, has just explained how, as SMEs, our basic structure for risk management, we can have a risk register where we can see, okay, what is the risk that I've identified, its impact, its likelihood, and what controls I can have in place. We should actually pay you for this.
I'm giving you guys free consultancy.
You know what I mean? No, and we really appreciate it here at Big Budget Business. And it's really busy. Let me remind you once again, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Keep those comments coming. If you'd like to call in, we'd like to meet you. We'd like to hear what you have to say and see you. Do feel free to click the link within the description. Now, we have some comments here that I'd like to get into. The first one here being from Dennis Diamond Masina, who says, a vital topic for today's world. Yeah, I think this is definitely quite a pertinent issue of our time, risk management with everything that's been going on. And then Mr. Joey Mutibi, thanks for this, Joey. He says, thank you so much, folks. This is so insightful. I think Rona SMEs lack a lot of risk management strategies when approaching business. Now, I'm one for partnerships in business. Joey here says he's one for partnerships in business, right? Muriski by nature, what risks should I reckon with before looking into a partnership type of move? Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that, Joey. I think what I'm picking is that you are wanting to have a partnership. It's already a risk strategy. It's like he's basically already managing a certain risk.
Exactly.
It could be he wants the skill sets from a partner, who comes in with more, who's knowledgeable, expertise or resources. He's already into the risk management aspect of things. That's more like a control activity where you are saying, I may not be effective in this business strategy. I need someone else to come and partner with. It's a risk. It's like you're limiting the risk, basically.
Exactly.
It's a limiting control.
It sort of dilutes what you would have been exposed to.
Yeah, but definitely due diligence is key. It's more of like look thoroughly into your compliance risks. Who is your partner? What is their reputation? Because, and especially SMMEs, whatever you do as a personal brand tends to really come off, or it gets off into your business.
No, that's true.
So you should be very careful about who you partner with and just conduct a thorough due diligence, just so that you know who you're dealing with. And
certainly. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for that question, Joey Mutibi. I think I hadn't actually read the second part of his question, which was what sort of strategies should I have in place? And you did mention due diligence. If Nature is going to partner with Big Budget, she needs to understand that there are some risks in place, and she has to do her checks.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Yes.
Right. We have a second question here from Khosi Latile Khautle, who says, how do you balance between risk mitigation strategies and a limited budget? How do you balance between risk mitigation strategies and a limited budget?
Oh, those sound like conflicting priorities.
Okay.
Tell us more. It's always a difficult one, Big Budget, to balance between limited budget and the risk strategies. And I think for the most part, I remember I wrote about something along these lines recently, where I was actually encouraging SMMEs to look closely into revenue leakages. Definitely, without doubt, there is somewhere a process that is not as effective as it should be. you'd
Yes.
find that there is something that is taking away your money in the business that you need to, delve deeper into, and look closely. Sometimes it's your customers who end up becoming bad debtors.
Oh, yes.
They have been owing you for so long and you can't recover. That means you need to kind of like go back and relook the strategy and ensure that maybe you limit on your credit terms.
Yes.
Revisit them. Who am I really allowing a credit term? Just so that there's no revenue leakage. So in that case, if you address all the revenue leakages, you eventually realize that there is a lot of cost saving that can eventually happen. And then eventually you don't really have to struggle so much with managing risks against the cost implications.
Okay.
And then the other thing is you need to really look closely into the controls that you want to put in against the risk.
Okay.
I must say, and I hope I'm not incriminating myself in the risk profession,
Okay.
controls come at a cost.
Okay.
Controls definitely come at a cost. Imagine I'm telling you that the lights could go off, big budget, you need to get a generator.
Yeah.
How much is a generator? How much is the lease in thereof?
Yeah.
So that's where I think Khosi is trying to lead us to say, sometimes you want us to manage risks, guys, but
There's a
that's
cost
an
to it.
additional cost to the business.
Yeah.
So that's maybe where you think of your leasing. Instead of buying sometimes, especially when you're a startup, you can rent like vehicles, for example, or generators, get into lease agreements instead.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's
yes,
more
all
like
right.
revisit your strategies.
Revisit your
basically.
strategies.
Yes.
And he does say here, Khosi, thanks for your question once again, Khosi. And he says, well articulated, Muriski. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks, Khosi.
Considering this cost perspective, I think we actually have a caller on the line. I'm told we have a caller. Let's see who is here. Hello, sir. How are you? Right. Great to have you, sir. Right.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, wonderful. I just want to confirm once again, can you hear us clearly?
Can hear you clearly.
Oh, wonderful. Your name, where you're calling from, and what is your question for today?
My name is Mowana. My lady there, she's utterly wonderful. I just want to know for someone who basically venture into a career path like hers.
I think we have a slight connection issue there. But what I did pick up from him was the issue of career path. So maybe let's get into your career path. What might we want to study? What might we want to get into?
All right. So first of all, well, I did mention it at the beginning of the interview that risk management is definitely a great field. There are many risk types. So when you want to venture into risk management, definitely consider the risk types that you want to be a part of. Like I'm currently in operational risk, but I studied fraud risk. There's credit risk, there's legal risk, there's compliance risk, there's financial crime risk management, like your anti-money laundering. So it's so broad. That's the first thing that you need to know.
Relationship risk.
Oh, wow.
No, in the corporate sector, of course.
Definitely, there's so many risk types.
Yes,
Business risks, financial risks. So you need to be, first of all, in a position to say, what do I want to venture into? What's the area that I want to sort of like choose? And if you're not so sure about it, you can take the enterprise risk management route. It sort of like incorporates all the risk types, basically.
It's more holistic.
Exactly. And it's actually a good starting point for somebody who wants to be into risk management. You can start off there as an enterprise risk management practitioner or risk analyst doing enterprise risk management, because it's going to expose you to all the risk types. You're going to have a bit of, they normally call it risk and compliance. It combines the two. So you'll know all the aspects of compliance risk, anti-money laundering, of operational risk, on fraud risk. And then eventually you can say, you know what, I think I'm more passionate about
this
this
specific
specific line. And then in that way, when you choose what you want to study, you are able to now pick based on your preference, you know, because it has to, you know, that value for money aspect. You know, there's a risk of, you know, that value for money not being realized.
Yes,
you know,
certainly.
so you need to be very picky about how you know, navigate your journey.
Okay.
Yeah.
Certainly. So I think in answering our caller, thank you very much for that call once again. If you'd like to consider a career path, perhaps the foundation would be enterprise risk management, and then see from a holistic perspective what it is in terms of risk that you would like to specialize in.
Definitely.
Awesome. We have a question here from Khale Reginald Malefo, who says SMEs seem to confuse continuity management and risk management. How do we raise risk management awareness in SMEs?
In SMEs. Oh, those are like two questions. So, business resilience or business continuity management is
Okay.
actually part of risk management.
Okay.
You know, it's now where we focus more on the continuity of the business to ensure that it carries on as a going concern into the foreseeable future.
Okay,
That's what
all right.
business resilience or business continuity management really looks at. To say, even right now, there's COVID, but we need to continue trading. You know, we need to continue operating.
Yes.
You know, things like working from home,
Of course.
things like diversifying into online platforms,
Yes.
you know, delivery services where there's a lockdown and so on.
Yes.
Those are basically aspects of continuity. To say, if we're not able to trade because of a risk materializing within our premises, how
we go
best do we continue?
Perfect.
You know, yeah.
Wow. So
And
that's
wait, there was
continuity.
a second part of the question, right?
Right. And he said, how do we raise risk management awareness in
Okay,
SMEs?
great. So there is still a long way to go.
Okay.
You know, we do have a long way to go. And it actually brings me to now my role in trying to help bridge the gap, you know,
course.
to ensure that SMMEs are not left out. You know, through hashtag Moriski by Nature, I have a column in the Business Weekly newspaper, Business Weekly and Review newspaper,
wonderful.
where I write, you know, about risk management, you know, just so to create awareness to help the SMMEs know about the principles of risk management. And the nice thing is I drill them down, you know,
Wow.
to helping an SMME understand to what extent does this risk management concept
At grassroots level.
fit
Yeah.
into the grassroots, you know, into my business.
Absolutely.
You know, regardless of any business type or the scale.
So you break
know,
it down,
I
basically.
break it down, you know, so deep. And in addition to that, and, you know, one of the offerings I recently introduced, I partnered with the Institute of Risk Managers in the UK. In one of
IRM.
my IRM UK, yes.
Wow. You're global.
Very global, you know.
Congratulations,
Thank
yes.
you. And it's to say, as much as I do, you know, these efforts to drive risk maturity at a national level, I also want to ensure that we have international subject matter experts on board
Yes.
to standardize, to ensure that whatever I'm creating awareness on at a
Yes.
Botswana level is aligned to what is happening at the international platforms.
Wonderful,
You know, so there's a lot going on. Do follow the Moriski by Nature column
Yes.
on the
yes.
Business Weekly and in other platforms as well. Do publications every now and then for other publication. What do they call it?
Publications.
Yeah, publications
newspapers,
for
yes.
other newspapers,
Yes.
not just the Business Weekly.
Oh, wonderful.
I meant to say that. So through Moriski by Nature, there's a lot of awareness activities that we are raising, and as an addition, we're now ensuring that we are creating more awareness, embedding the international aspect into the work that we do.
Yes.
You know, and in the upcoming column for this week, it's going to be in partnership with another risk management expert from South Africa.
Wow.
You know, so it's basically, yeah, to say we want to ensure that there's that alignment.
Exactly.
Whatever awareness we create, rest assured that it's exactly what South Africans are learning, what people in, you know, any other country are also being taught.
Absolutely. I think our viewers at home are appreciating the importance of global collaboration, making sure that whatever you are doing here is something that can be applied also internationally. If you're going to be raising awareness about business, for instance, what is it that is happening outside and who can you bring in from outside, such as the IRM for risk, to help us see how we can standardize from an international perspective whatever fields that we're in. And you know, you did touch on the issue of COVID, and I was going to ask, COVID, it's disrupted a lot from a risk perspective, and it's changed business as we know it. Yeah, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so COVID has, you know, it's like a risk that has materialized, and, you know, most of us didn't see it coming. You know, I must confess, even I, as a risk management practitioner, didn't think that, you know, by this time last year, it's already a full year now, you know, we'd be entering a lockdown, starting to work from home, you know, starting to, you know, interact with the new normal. We didn't see it coming, you know, and it goes without saying to say, you know, there are certain risks that can materialize and you are not going to even be aware of these risks, you know. Like we thought, this is probably something that is happening in Asia, it'll never come home. But unfortunately it did, and we learned a lesson, you know, that, and it actually showed that we need to really take risk management seriously. You know, to say, yes, it did materialize, we didn't see it coming. However, this is what we need to do now to ensure that we do not shut down completely as a nation. There are many protocols that have been embedded. You know, those are risk management strategies.
Of course.
You know, the working from home that many companies are incorporating. There are a lot of things that are happening. And it's also creating the aspect of opportunity risk. It's another concept that is not so common.
Opportunity.
Opportunity risk. Yes, or the upside of risk. Because we often relate risk with the negative aspect. However, there's also the positive side to say, you know what, certain businesses can thrive because of these abilities to now have delivery services like restaurants.
Of course.
You know, and we know some of them that actually made a killing during the lockdown because they had to be agile. So it calls for agility. It calls for more robust risk management structures to say we didn't see it coming, but it's now here. How do we continue to manage this risk to make sure that we are not adversely affected and our small enterprises or medium enterprises continue to operate even regardless of these challenges?
Wow.
Yes.
So let's try our best in our businesses as we go on with them to be agile. I like that word. Agile, ensure that we are adaptable to different situations and resilient because we never know what might happen. So I was going to ask, but you did mention a bit that they can follow the column. How else can you be reached for any further information?
Okay, so the platform I currently use for the professional aspect and for hashtag Morisky by Nature is on LinkedIn. You can just follow me, Nature-elle Mogotsi, on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yes.
Nature-elle
and
Mogotsi.
definitely as time goes on, because there is so much passion, and you know, we recently rebranded. It used to be the Risk Awareness Series on the Business Weekly. So only in 2021, we're like, you know what, we need to change things. We need to be agile. Switch it up a bit. You know, make it more fun, you know, to call it hashtag Morisky by Nature. Why Morisky? I mean, Morisky is that slang name, you know, to define someone who's a risk taker. You know, it's just my way of saying, let's take risk management closer to the people. Someone mentioned in the questions, how do we spread the awareness and ensure that people are aware? This is my way of saying, let's hashtag together. Let's be more Morisky together, you know. Hashtag Morisky by Nature.
Morisky by Nature, wow. You know what, there's so much more that we could have spoken about, but because of time, let me thank you so much. And thank you also to those who posted their comments and for the caller for his question. Morisky by Nature, Nature-elle Mogotsi, our risk expert. Thank you so much for being here, and we certainly look forward to having you here once again.
Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure, Big Budget.
Thank you so much. All right. All right, so today's 2-minute tip. I'm sure a lot of us business owners have been receiving messages from our banks about submission of our KYC documentation. It's about that time. So if we want to keep our bank accounts active, there are a few documents that we need to make sure that we submit to the bank for this KYC, or Know Your Customer. And some of these documents, we'll just take you through them. Number one, company secretarial documents. Now, this is something such as your certificate of incorporation and your company extract. Number two, make sure you have certified copies of your ID, your identity documentation, or certified copies of your passports if you are a foreign national. And then, of course, number three, you need to have proof of the operational premises of your business, as well as where your business is registered. Proof of the operational premises and registration of your business. And then, of course, what you need to do is collate all of those documents, submit them. The last thing before I forget is you need to show your sources of income. And this can be done in different ways. You can either submit a cash flow projection, or you can submit a letter from your company secretary that shows what the sources of income are. Or thirdly, you can submit your annual financial statements. But talk to your banks too and ask them if there's anything more that we might not have spoken about, because it's important for us to submit our KYC documents and stay active. It's been a wonderful show. Thank you so much for your time. From me, Big Budget, and the team, it's good night and God bless. And never forget that you were born for so much more.